I'm going to be looking at some basic row operations for a little bit today, and I have listed for you a matrix A, B, and C. Matrix A would be a size 2 by 3. When we're looking at what's called the order of a matrix, that's also basically just its size. We're talking about row by column. So A would be a 2 by 3, B would also be a 2 by 3, and C would be a 3 by 2. And that's just talking about the size of the matrix, just so you'll be familiar with exactly what it is that I'm talking about. I'd like to do some row operations. I want to add and subtract, and then I want to multiply. I'd like to do A plus B, so I'm going to do, alright, I'd like to add two matrices. I'm going to add A plus B. And you add them element by element. And so in the very first row, I'm going to add the 2 plus the 0. And that's going to go in my very first row 1, column 1. So that's going to be a 2. Next, I'll add my negative 1 and 4. That's going to be a 3. Then I'll add 3 and negative 2. That's a 1. Then I'm going to add 0 and 1. I'll add 4 and negative 1. That's a 3. And I'll add 1 and 3, and that's a 4. Next, I'd like to add A plus C. And that one's pretty easy to do because the sizes are a mismatch, and I can't do it. So let's say I want to do 3 times A minus 2 times B. Well, the first thing I need to do, this is called a scalar being multiplied by A. That means everything in A multiplied by a 3 and everything in B multiplied by a 2. And then I'm going to subtract those. So I'm going to list those out. I'll multiply everything in A by a 3. So I'll have 6, negative 3, 9, 0, 12, and 3. I took each of those elements and multiplied it by a 3. Then I'm going to take each of those elements in B and multiply by a 2. So I have 0, 8, and then I would have minus 4. Then I'm going to do 2, minus 2, and 6. And now I'm going to subtract each of those elements. So don't forget about this whenever you're doing them. It's got to be 6 minus 0, 6. Minus 3 minus 8 would be a minus 11. 9 minus a negative 4 would be 13, I believe. Then 0 minus 2 is a negative 2. 12 minus a negative 2, that's going to end up being plus again, so that's a 14. 3 minus 6, that is a negative 3. Multiply two matrices. I'm going to do A times C. And multiplying two matrices can be quite messy. It's not quite as easy as the adding and subtracting. So let me list out. I'm going to multiply A times C. Now, in order to multiply two matrices, the number of elements in your row for the first matrix must match up, be the same numerically, must be the same number of elements numerically as the elements in the column. So I have 3 elements in this row in A, and I have 3 elements in the column for C, and so this matches up. And all you're going to do is you're going to multiply the very first elements times each other, and then add to that the product of the next 2 plus the product of the next 2. So not quite as straightforward as the addition was and subtraction. So here we go. We're going to look at this very first one. I'm going to do 2 times my 1 plus, I'm going to do negative 1 times 0. So let's see, I've got 2 times 1 plus negative 1 times 0 plus 3 times negative 1. So that's going to be 2 plus 0 plus negative 3. So my very first element is going to be negative 1. Okay, so I'm finished with the first row, first column. So I'll get that mess out of the way. And the next thing I'll do is go to, whoops, did away with my little element. And what was that? That was 2 and a -3, so that was a -1. I'll put him back. All right, so next thing I need to do is go on to the next. I'm finished with this column, so I go on to the next column, and I'm going to do the same kind of thing. I'm going to say 2 times 2 plus -1 times -2 plus 3 times 0. And that's going to end up being 4 plus 2 plus 0. So this guy is going to be a 6. I better get my yellow pen. Okay. And I'm finished with the first row and all of his columns. So you're done. You've got multiplied by each of the columns. So the next thing I'm going to do is look at the second row. Woo! That's a little messy. All right. So I'll make that in yellow. I need to do 0 times 1 plus 4 times 0 plus 1 times -1. And that's going to be 0, 0, -1. All right, let me get rid of some of that stuff on there because it is a little bit messy. All right, now for my very last entry, I'll be doing the last row. Tried to clean this up a little bit for you. Try to go a little smoother. So I have 0 times 2 plus 4 times -2 plus 1 times 0. 0 plus -8 plus 0. So this is going to be -8 for this last entry. Pretty cool because A times C, which is a 2 by 3 times a 3 by 2, ends up getting me a 2 by 2. So next, let's clear all of this off of here. And we will look at, next we're going to look at A times B. So I'm going to do A, and I'll multiply row times column. And I once again have a dimension mismatch. And I guess that's all of my row operations.